Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure that we'll get back to Mr. Dev Mukherjee quite quickly, I think. But before that, let me welcome all the delegates, all the panelists, all the speaker, moderators, and the entire team at the Education Committee at the Bengal Chamber and Secretariat, of course, who have worked so hard to bring to you this two-day the Annual Education Conclave 2020. It has been a great start for the national education policy because, as Mr. Dev Mukherjee was telling, that we're just in the brink of starting a new decade, and the national education policy has come in the right time. In fact, it is quite interesting because India has to wait for 30 years to get a new education policy. And the new education policy actually heralds new India. We are today very fortunate that the keynote address will be delivered by the man who penned the National Education Policy 2020, none other than Padma Vibhishan, Dr. Kasturi Rangan sir, and he will be coming and talking in detail about NEP. And I think what more can we wait for? The National Education Policy actually has been made to look at the new generation of the Indian students at the school level, college level, university level, and the preschool level. Of course, vocational education has taken a very important role. To quote our Prime Minister Modi, who said that the focus needs to be on the implementation of the policy. I think that is the most important thing in front of the entire community of educators all over the country. The implementation of the policy is where the success of the National Education Policy 2020 will lie, because it is all about implementation. As we all understand, that India is a difficult country because of its diversity, because of the digital divide, and of course because of the huge disproportionate wealth distribution. So keeping that ecosystem, keeping that infrastructural issues to implement the NEP would be the bigger challenge than the NEP itself. And I think by 2020, the implementation will start in the right earnest. I think one of the most important and interesting part of NEP is that the students are now given that opportunity to study what they want to study, and not that typical that engineering or medicine or law or chartered accountant. When I was a student, I studied chartered accountant because that was the only thing available apart from anything else in science. But today, you can actually study music with physics. You can study culinary with mathematics. I think the biggest advantage of the new education policy is that we are giving the students a platform to realize their talent, to realize their potential, and to become what they want to become. I think over the last so many years, the world has moved on. Even our country have moved on. We have become a digitally superpower in a lot of respect. The top IT companies in the world are led by Indians. But unfortunately, the education system stood at a standstill what it was 30, 40 years back. So it's such a refreshing transformation for the country to bring the new education policy. The National Education Policy 2020 will herald a new India. This policy is for creating our new children of the new generation who will be the best in the world. We need to come out of that huge slavery of the we need to do engineering or IITs or medicine. We need to come out of the prison that everybody have to be an engineer or everybody have to go for the huge joint entrance examination. We need to give our kids a much more playing field that they can actually study what they want to study and succeed. I think the national education policy has actually pinpointed that very, very nicely. They want to make sure that the students will not really work for getting marks. They want to make sure that the school bags would be much more lighter. And there would be a huge, huge emphasis on the modern education, the vocational education. And people will not really go for the joint entrance and the traditional education that has been the bane of our society for last 40 years. I have seen in so many places the students are spending years. They are getting depressed, they are getting addicted because they have not been able to cope up with the entrance examination. And I think national education policy has solving that issue. And that I think is a huge, huge thing for all of us. The school will be adopting the new format. Right now we work on a 10+2. That's going to change. And from 2020, the school will be adopting a new framework. There will be no limit for the classroom. The students can actually go and study anywhere. More projects, assignment, less classroom education. I think the biggest thing is that the students are getting far more independence. I think all in all, the national education policy is actually throwing a new light as they move on to the new generation of our children, where the national education policy is paving the way to generate the employability. Employability is very important. And our students that we are producing sometimes are good, but they are not employable. I think the national education policy is providing that important structure of making our children, making the millennials, making the students employable. It is not about literacy. It's about education. I think long time back, Gandhiji said that literacy is not education. Literacy is not the end of education. It is not even the beginning. I think today, at 2020, we realize what the great Mahatma Gandhi said, that we should not be so much obsessed with the literacy. We should be focused on the employability. We should be focused on holistic education. If there is somebody who is good in culinary, somebody who is good in television, on anchoring, if somebody is good in coding, let that be his or her career, not the IITs and the medical colleges of the world. Because we have got so much of population, young population, that we can make India an absolutely superpower, an absolutely intellectual superpower, if we really think beyond marks, think beyond the divisions, think beyond the entrance examination, and the kind of stress, the kind of depression that the kids go through, going through this process. We all know about it. But today, the National Education Policy 2020 has given a lot of structure that we can come out of this bigger pandemic that has been ailing the India's education for last 40 years. I think when Padma Vibhishan, Dr. Kasturi Rangan will come few minutes from now, he will tell much more than this. But as an educator for 31 years, I can say that this is possibly the best thing that has happened in India ever since the independence. Because any society in the world needs this independent, educated people. People who choose their education, people who are independently happy to do what they like to do. And I think the National Education Policy 2020 is the new beginning. It has been done for the new generation. It is for the new India. And we are so fortunate and delighted to have the man who wrote it all, who will be joining very shortly, Dr. Kasturi Rangan himself, to tell us more about it. Once again, let me thank all of you for joining this two-day Annual Education Conclave 2020 of our Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And I'd like to thank all the sponsors, all our panelists, the moderators, the speakers, the IT team, the team at the Secretariat of Bengal Chamber of Commerce, and the EduGuide team, and everyone in the Education Committee of the Bengal Chamber of Commerce, which I'm so privileged to lead. Thank you very much for your contribution, for your suggestions, and for your help to make this virtual conference such a great success, even in the midst of the pandemic that we are all going through. So thank you very much, and look forward for absolutely rocking 2 days of great conversation and great talks by some galaxy of the educationists and great people. Thank you very much.